evil. We pretend it's something distant, foreign, something that lives in others, never in ourselves. We draw clean lines, heroes and villains, light and dark, because it comforts us to believe that darkness has clear boundaries. But history, psychology, and philosophy whisper something much more disturbing. That evil doesn't announce itself with horns and flames. It walks quietly, wears familiar faces, speaks your language, and sometimes thinks with your voice. The truth is unsettling. The worst horrors in history weren't always committed by monsters. They were committed by ordinary people. People who had jobs, families, beliefs. People who thought they were doing the right thing. People who looked in the mirror and saw nothing wrong. The darkest acts of humanity weren't just acts of rage. They were calculated, systematic, and perhaps most terrifyingly, rationalized. We must stop thinking of evil as an aberration and begin to understand it as a pattern, a set of conditions, a human potential. Because until we understand it, we are destined to repeat it. Not because we want to, but because we'll never see it coming. So what drives human evil? Let's begin at the beginning. Not with demons or devils, but with discomfort. Evil often begins in small compromises. A lie here, an excuse there, a silence when we should speak. Over time, those small steps form a path. And by the time we realize where we're standing, the landscape has already changed. The person we were has already shifted. Most people don't wake up and decide to be cruel. They rationalize it. They justify it. They reframe it as duty, loyalty, protection, justice. A soldier doesn't think of himself as evil. He tells himself he's defending his homeland. A CEO who cuts wages tells himself he's protecting the company. A torturer tells himself he's extracting truth. These are the lies evil loves. Not because they're loud, but because they're convincing. Philosophers have wrestled with this darkness for centuries. Augustine saw evil not as a force, but as a lack, a privation of good, a hole, not a presence. Nietzsche, on the other hand, believed our entire concept of evil was born from weakness, from the resentment of the powerless, who painted the powerful as wicked to feel morally superior. Then came Hannah Arendt, who gave us a chilling insight, that evil can be banal, that a man like Adolf Eichmann, responsible for the logistics of mass murder, didn't look like a monster. He looked like a bureaucrat. Eichmann didn't scream hate. He filled out forms. He followed orders. He did his job. And that is perhaps the most terrifying revelation. That evil can exist without sadism, without rage, just obedience, structure, and a lack of reflection. You don't need to be bloodthirsty to do great harm. You just need to stop asking questions. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments in the 1960s showed us how easy this is. Participants were told to deliver electric shocks to a stranger in another room. As the screams got louder, most people hesitated. But when an authority figure said, "Please continue," they obeyed. Some went all the way to what they believed were fatal shocks. Why? Because someone told them it was okay. Milgram wasn't studying cruelty. He was studying obedience. And what he found was that ordinary people will do extraordinary harm if the system around them tells them it's the right thing to do. Evil thrives not in chaos, but in order. It thrives in systems, hierarchies, institutions. Bureaucracies are particularly fertile ground. They dilute responsibility. No one feels like they're making the decision. Everyone's just doing their job. The same logic applied in Nazi Germany, in Soviet purges, in corporate exploitation, in genocides from Rwanda to Myanmar. When you ask the people involved, "Why did you do this?" the answer is almost always the same. "I didn't have a choice." But here's the truth, they did. Evil doesn't require hate, it requires indifference. the absence of moral engagement, the refusal to ask, is this right? And it requires one more thing: dehumanization. You can't hurt someone if you see them as fully human. You need to see them as something less: a threat, a disease, an enemy, a thing. That's why regimes, cults, even corporations go to great lengths to control language. They rebrand people as pests, criminals, degenerates, extremists, not because it's true, but because it makes what follows easier. Once a group is no longer us, they become expendable. And when you combine dehumanization with ideology, you get moral justification. You don't just tolerate evil, you believe it's necessary. That's the final stage. That's how good people become executioners. Not because they lose their morality, but because they twist it. They believe they're saving the world. So how do we defend ourselves against this? First, we need to recognize that evil isn't a leap, it's a slide. It begins with silence, not action. With looking away, with going along to get along, with wanting to belong more than we want to be right. It begins in us. The second defense is radical self-awareness. Question your beliefs, question your side. Ask yourself not only what you think, but why you think it. Where did those thoughts come from? Who benefits from them? Third, remember empathy. Not the weak kind that lets you be manipulated, but the strong kind. The kind that refuses to forget another person's humanity, even when it's inconvenient. The people who resisted the worst horrors in history weren't superhuman. They were people who paused, questioned, and refused. They didn't always win, but they remained whole. This world is still full of systems that reward conformity over conscience. Algorithms push us toward outrage. News media feeds us division. Politicians sell us fear. And somewhere, someone profits every time we dehumanize each other. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a policy change, a social trend, a new narrative, a digital silence. That's why this matters. Understanding the philosophy of evil isn't about studying monsters. It's about seeing the mirror, recognizing our capacity for darkness, and then choosing, every day, not to obey it. Evil is seductive because it feels easy. It offers certainty, belonging, power. It tells you you're on the right side, that you don't have to think, that you've already won. But real strength lies in resisting that call. So if this disturbed you, good. That means you're awake. Stay awake. And if this gave you clarity or lit a fire inside you, share it. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts below. Speak out. Not just for me, for the others who are watching silently, wondering if they're alone in what they feel. You're not alone, because here's the final truth. The most dangerous evil is the one that feels normal. And the only thing that can stop it is people who refuse to accept that. We'll be back soon with more truths they'd rather you ignore. Until then, stay sharp, stay human, and never look away.